Hey, I'm Tamara Kendacker, and you're listening to The Decibel from the Globe and Mail. So if you're not super into shopping for clothes online or fashion content on social media, you may not have heard of the clothing brand Shein. But Shein is huge in the world of fast fashion. And given how pervasive its online presence is, chances are you're not going to be able to escape it for much longer. Shein is all over social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram, not just because of paid marketing, but also because of regular people promoting the brand on their feeds.
Hey guys, my Shein order just arrived, so let's open it together.
This package, I am so excited to open it. It is so heavy and it's so fast. Guess what just came in? Shein! Oh, I got a bunch of stuff.
The Chinese company, which has become a Gen Z favorite for trendy clothes and accessories at really low prices, has no brick and mortar stores, yet in 2020, it made $10 billion in sales. And as my guest today wrote recently, it's so far ahead of its competitors like H&M and Zara that it's difficult to compare them.
Shein did not start fashion over consumption, but it certainly has accelerated it.
Terry Wen is a reporter for The Goods at Vox, and she recently wrote a piece called Shein is the Future of Fast Fashion. Is that a good thing? We're going to talk about where this company came from, the ethical questions that have come up around its business practices, and what its dominance means for the future of fast fashion. You're listening to The Decibel. Hey, Terry, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I see Shein all over my social media, and a lot of people I know are shopping there. I have friends who've told me to shop there for clothes I've needed for events and stuff like that. And I think you really captured the craze around this company in your piece. So can you start by telling us just how popular Shein is?
Yeah, so Shein is very, very popular. I can't emphasize that enough. But interestingly enough, although it's a China-based company, the US is its largest market. And it really focuses on, Western consumers. So in 2020 alone, they raked in about, $10 billion. And that is its 8th year of revenue growth, over 100%. That's a crazy number.
Yeah, and you also wrote that in June, Shein overtook Amazon for the first time to become the leading US shopping app, and it holds that title in 50 countries, which is crazy.
Yeah, definitely. I really haven't used that app just as a regular consumer, but that's a really fascinating metric to look at because it shows that people aren't just going on Shein.com. They want something much more accessible so they could browse and shop. And so even in a lot of consumer surveys I've seen, gathering data about, teenagers and folks in their early 20s, Shein has risen to become a very recognizable name brand, competing with, things like Nike or Adidas, very homegrown American brands that people recognize. That they're competing kind of at that level.
I saw this TikTok. There's this woman in a pink bikini, and she's it's about the quality of the stuff that you find on Shein. And she's standing up, and the camera pans down to her towel, her beach towel. It's white, and it has pink residue on it from the bikini that she was wearing. No. So what is the quality of the stuff that you can find on Shein?
The quality isn't always the greatest, but I do know friends and coworkers who really like the stuff they get from there. And certainly if you take care of your clothes, they can last. But most items on Shein, I think, are made out of, synthetic fibers, mostly, polyester and kind of flimsily sewn together. I've definitely had my share of TikTok videos that show a garment falling apart after a wash or something that really was marketed to look really nice on the website, but when it arrives, it looked nothing like what it promised. And so there's definitely that possibility as well.
You wrote in your piece, and I like this line, you wrote, the Shein model abides by the tenet that access can be accessible through mysteriously low prices with little care for environmental costs or transparency about its labor force. And I recently went on the Shein website for the first time to see sort of what the hype was about. And I was really shocked by what I saw there in terms of prices. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around how cheap some of the stuff is. And can you give us an idea of how much things cost on Shein?
Yeah, so I think the average price of a garment is around like $10. And, when you're thinking about how that is being shipped from China, and they mostly offer free shipping, especially if you're in the US or Canada, I think they offer free shipping no matter how many garments you purchase. So that in and of itself, just for me as someone who monitors consumer trends, that's kind of a red flag. And although, they aren't the quickest with shipping, it still creates an incentive for people to buy a lot of items at once.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned in your piece that there's entire sections on the website to help people get like the cheapest deals, like tops for under $5.99, dresses for under $8.99, right?
Yeah, they kind of baked into Shein's marketing is the prices of their goods. Like you can get a dress for under $15 and it'll be very cute and very trendy. And they know that this is what their consumer base wants. I think what's fascinating about Shein is that it has really no discernible style, very much in the vein of kind of Forever 21. They're just very trendy and they seem very of the moment and very suitable for, social media like Instagram or TikTok.
Can you give me an example of something that's gone viral on TikTok that then started selling like crazy on Shein?
Yes, there is this kind of risque halter top that a lot of women really love. And they think that, it's like $13. It comes in all sorts of colors, but it's pretty much just a crop top and you can kind of tie it. It kind of creates like a V at your chest and you just tie it in the back and it has an open back. And that's been like a huge cult favorite on Shein.
So you wrote about how Shein is representative of ultra fast fashion or fashion 2.0. And can we start by defining what fast fashion is?
Yeah, so the fast fashion business model really came about in the 1990s with the founder of Zara. And Zara was notorious for, really abandoning the concept of fashion seasons for a year-long, constant cycle of production. Customers could go in their stores every few weeks and expect to see just new garments and new styles on the rack. The latest iteration of fast fashion or ultra fast fashion really takes that up a notch. They're constantly releasing new styles every day, multiple or hundreds of styles a day, which is what Shein does. But really the kind of acceleration of fashion really begins kind of with Zara and Forever 21 and those kind of 90s brands. I think a very discerning trait of the second iteration of fast fashion, ultra fast fashion, is that they don't really have brick and mortar stores. ASOS, Boohoo, Fashion Nova, they occasionally have pop-ups, but Shein is solely an online enterprise. And so they are able to get clothes to consumers much faster, whereas I think we saw with the pandemic, Zara, Forever 21, and H&M, they've seen their numbers go down in the past year just because they needed to maintain overhead. And when I write about Shein, I kind of describe it as this revolutionary changing company that could, lead future brands to think differently about how they approach fast fashion, how their manufacturing pace should be. Later in the piece, I describe its software technology and its location. And I think that really sets it apart from other existing ultra fast fashion brands, which might not be as centralized and close to their manufacturing hubs as Shein is.
Yeah. And unpack that for me a little bit. What has Shein done in particular production-wise that sets it apart from these other ultra fast fashion companies?
Yeah, Shein heavily relies on search traffic and existing customer data to not only foreshadow trends, but to place sort of orders on certain styles it can anticipate that might go viral or might be very popular with its customers. So one source I spoke to, he described it as real-time retail, which means that Shein is, constantly gathering and analyzing this data and crafting new designs. And kind of the final piece of the puzzle that allows them to create such a fast production pace is that they're essentially located in China. They have good relationships with kind of smaller factories and are able to place kind of, if this makes sense, smaller bets compared to a larger competitor than, for example, Zara or Boohoo. In my research, I read that Boohoo orders around 300 to 500 units per style, but Shein can order kind of even lower than that, like around like 100 to 200 units, and therefore it can cut its losses.
You mentioned this demographic that they're pursuing, the women between the ages of 18 and 24. And why is it so popular, do you think, for that group in particular? Why are people so drawn to Shein?
Yeah, I think Shein is very successful in its social media marketing strategy. I mean, I think they were one of the first to really go viral on TikTok. And it's not just, well-placed ads or things like that, or just solely working with a specific subset of influencers, but they really know how to kind of diversify their reach. I've seen them not only on ads on my TikTok, but through just regular people promoting them and doing hauls. A haul basically is when you or any shopper buys a huge amount of clothing. Like that can be, 10 items, 20 items, 30 items. And with Shein, if clothes you can buy tops for under $10. You can buy a whole outfit for $20, $25. It becomes sort of a trademark kind of video in which a person showcases what they've bought, tries things on, kind of explains why they bought something, and pretty much does like free promotion for the company.
Okay, first thing I got is this like clear crossbody bag for football games. So cute.
And I got this cow phone case. This is so cute.
I got these sets of 4, which is crazy. So these are literally biker shorts.
And then I also got it in black. And they're very good material.
The quality is cheap, but it's still really cute.
In the piece I wrote about how one of the most recognizable things about Shein is that it's so cheap that consumers want to do like $400 or $500 hauls and just film themselves unwrapping a package. Just that viral trend made it so recognizable in the eyes of so many people on TikTok. They don't even need to watch an ad, but they just kind of, think of Shein when they see someone doing a massive haul.
So the speed at which Shein is able to introduce new styles and the low prices sound kind of like too good to be true. And I wonder, what do we know about the company's business practices?
Yeah, not much is actually known about Shein's business practices. Its founder also has said very little to the Western press. Shein actually isn't a very well-known clothing brand in China. As I mentioned earlier, they're, better known in the US or in Western markets. And so that kind of allows them to slide under the radar a little bit. But actually in August, Reuters reported that Shein has yet to disclose information about its working conditions and its supply chain to the British government, which it's required to do under UK law. And it's also found that Shein falsely stated on its site that its factories were certified by, international labor standard bodies. A lot remains to be seen about whether their labor practices, at least in the Western context, is acceptable, just because, across the world, labor standards do vary.
Yeah. So we really don't know what things are like inside these factories that Shein works with, but we do know that they have been caught saying that they're certified by labor standards bodies, even though they haven't been.
Yeah, exactly. And sort of related to, its labor standards is another conversation I think a lot of designers have mentioned, is that Shein is just notorious for being a copycat. Since they source designs that are popular on the internet, it almost requires them, at least to produce something quickly or to come up with a design very quickly, is to just, outright copy existing or small designers. So that is also another kind of direct result of its fast production cycle, is that it just rips off a lot of not only artwork, but even like drawings from the internet, just to bet on whether it'll work with their customers.
Right. I also saw this TikTok recently where the person making the video is in a secondhand clothing store and she's showing the tags on the clothes, and they're all from Shein, and the caption says something like, "You guys need to stop your irresponsible Shein purchases because now these stores are overflowing with Shein clothes." And what are the impacts of the overconsumption that we see when it comes to Shein, which is central to its business model?
So, Shein did not start fashion over consumption, but it certainly has accelerated it. And it's created this environment in which people continually want to buy, and you think that you can just donate your clothes. You donate your clothes to make room for more in your closet. But the reality is a lot of clothes that are donated never make it onto the rack. And a lot of the Shein clothes that you see that actually make it onto the rack might not last for long, just because, they're made up of a lot of synthetic fibers. They're not able to be recycled as a result of that. But kind of the result of fashion over consumption in general is that it's a huge environmental problem. A lot of clothes are shipped overseas to be, bought by the pound, and sometimes they're just burned if there aren't enough, people wanting to buy these excess clothes.
Right. There are a lot of shoppers who say they go to Shein because it's affordable. So I guess that's something that's also worth noting, right?
Yeah, definitely. Shein is not a successful company by virtue of people who have to buy out of necessity. If you're buying 5 garments from Shein a year, that's a drop in the bucket compared to what they're raking in. They're raking in $10 billion. There could be an argument that, multiple people, hundreds of thousands of people buying relatively few garments could make up a sizable part of the company. But I really do think the problem we should be focusing on is kind of, the tendency to bulk buy from Shein. I don't think that those who are buying out of necessity are the ones who are really kind of fueling the growth of this company.
Yeah. And are we seeing a backlash to Shein at all yet? And I'm curious because its target demographic seems to be Gen Z, and this is a generation that is concerned with ethical consumption.
Yeah, on TikTok, I definitely, at the bottom of various Shein hauls, I've seen people mention, this might not be an ethical company. We don't know much about its labor practices. But I do think there's a sense among younger consumers that it's, too good to be true. And I think, there is this balance for a lot of young teenage shoppers who buy fast fashion, but also, thrift shop. But, overall, there's just a lot of consumer burden in deciding what is ethical or what is sustainable to buy, instead of, companies or government policies kind of establishing that first layer of defense for consumers to filter out. So I think that is, a large problem across fashion, not just with Shein.
And what do you think the success of a company like Shein means for the future of fashion?
I think fashion is going to be faster, just as a result of Shein showing how it can be done. Shein is definitely an accelerant when it comes to people buying more and more garments. But if you kind of look at the data from the past decade or two, people have been buying more. So I do think they're sort of just the latest consequence in this mission to accelerate fashion from a business sense to drive a profit. And that really, makes me wary, especially with the pandemic that has put a lot of stress on supply chains, not just in fashion, but just all across the board. So it's really interesting that Shein is now emerging as something that can deliver clothes very quickly, but it remains to be seen whether our physical world can actually sustain that.
Cool. Terry, thank you so much for doing this great piece. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
That's it for today. I'm Tamara Kandaker. Our producers are Madeline White and Kasia Mihailovich. Rebecca Weston is our intern, David Crosby edits the show, and Angela Pacenza is our executive editor. Thank you so much to Terry Wen. You can find her on Twitter at TerryGTNGUYEN. If you want to email us, you can reach us at thedecibel@globeandmail.com. If you want to reach me, I'm on Twitter at Anima_TK. We always want to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.